All right, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Bellevue City Council meeting for Monday, November 13th, 2023. Clerk, could you do the roll call, please, or call to order?
Thank you. Mayor Robinson? She is Mayor Robinson. Okay.
I'm not sure she can hear you.
Yeah, we're working on
Okay.
the tech here. Okay, thank you. Mayor Robinson?
I'm here.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Neuenhouse?
Here?
Councilmember Barksdale?
Here.
Councilmember Lee will be joining us shortly, virtually. Councilmember Robertson?
I'm here.
Councilmember Stokes?
Here.
And Councilmember Zahn?
Here.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stokes, could you please lead us in the flag salute?
Yes, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, this evening we have three proclamations, and as we've done before, what we'd like to do is read each proclamation, have those that have come down to accept the proclamation say a few words, but then we will save the pictures to the very end to limit the amount of back and forth on and off the dais here. So our first proclamation is Transgender Awareness Week, and I have Councilmember Barksdale to read that proclamation.
Whereas more than 1 million adults in the U.S. identify as transgender or non-binary, totaling an estimated 1.6% of the adult population, according to a recent Pew Research Center survey. And whereas each year people and organizations around the country participate in Transgender Awareness Week, November 13th through the 19th, to help raise visibility and awareness of transgender communities and address the issues they face, including prejudice, discrimination, and violence. And whereas the first officially recognized in 1999 after the murder of Rita Hester, a transgender black woman, Transgender Day of Remembrance on November 20th is an annual vigil that takes place around the world to honor and remember all transgender and gender nonconforming community members lost to violence in the current year. And whereas, as of the writing of this proclamation, at least 25 transgender and gender nonconforming people in the United States, the vast majority being Black and Latina trans women, were killed by violence this year, according to the Human Rights Campaign, which began tracking fatal violence against transgender individuals in 2013. And whereas the City of Bellevue joins transgender people and their allies to educate the public about who transgender people are and the urgent need for resources to support and protect this community. City staff gather each year to recognize Transgender Day of Remembrance and read the names of transgender community members lost in our nation to violence. Now, therefore, I, on behalf of Lynn Robinson, Mayor of Bellevue, Washington, and on behalf of this City Council, do hereby proclaim November 13th through the 19th, 2023, as Transgender Awareness Week in Bellevue, and encourage all residents to recognize Transgender Remembrance Day on November 20th and join ceremonies and activities to raise awareness for transgender issues while reflecting on the unique identities and lives within this community.
Thank you, Councilmember Barksdale. We don't have anyone receiving that proclamation this evening, so we'll move to the next proclamation, which is World Day of Remembrance for Road Traffic Victims proclamation, to be read by Councilmember Robertson.
Thank you. Whereas 42,795 people died in traffic crashes in the United States in 2022, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, 745 of them in Washington State. Whereas 23 people died and 211 people were seriously injured in traffic crashes on Bellevue roads between 2013 and 2022. And whereas the City of Bellevue has adopted Vision Zero, which aims to eliminate traffic deaths and serious injury collisions on city streets by 2030. And whereas the safe system approach used in Vision Zero identifies pillars, supportive elements, and strategies to work towards the ultimate goal, including engaging and educating people to take personal responsibility in advancing Vision Zero. And whereas the World Day of Remembrance for Road Traffic Victims is a high-profile global event to remember the many millions who who have been killed and seriously injured on the world's roads, and to acknowledge the suffering of all affected victims, families, and communities. And whereas the 2023 World Day of Remembrance theme, Safe Streets for People, reminds us that all people deserve safe mobility and promotes evidence-based actions to prevent further road traffic deaths and injuries to ensure the future safety of all road users. Now therefore, on behalf of Lynn Robinson, Mayor of the City of Bellevue, Washington, and on behalf of its City Council, I do hereby proclaim November 19th, 2023 as World Day of Remembrance for road traffic victims in Bellevue, and urge all community members to remember those impacted by traffic crashes and to consider what we can do to improve road safety together. Signed, Lynn Robinson, Mayor, City of Bellevue.
Thank you, Councilmember Robertson. We have Fire and Police Chaplain Mike Ryan here to accept the proclamation. While he's making his way down, we have additional representatives in support of this proclamation. Victor Ball and Ganesh Anathananian. Just because I have a long last name doesn't mean I can pronounce all of them that are really long, who are from Microsoft. Aaron Rainey and Kirk Niebert from T-Mobile. We got Laura Gardner from Eastside Urbanism, Heather Clark from HopeLink, Melanie McAlien, AAA Washington, Dr. Anne Marie Dooley from Washington Physicians for Social Responsibility, Christopher Randalls from Complete Streets Bellevue, and Yinha Wang from the University of Washington. Thank you all for being here. Chaplain Ryan, please have a seat. Thank you. You're most welcome.
Franz asked me to speak because of my role in working with victims of traffic accidents over the years, and as has been said, 23 people have died and 211 injured over the last decade, and that's significant. Any individual injured or killed is a tragedy, and unfortunately, I've seen it. I remember being called to the scene of a 3-year-old being escorted across the street by her mom, and a left turn driver didn't see her, and she was struck and killed. And I got called to the scene, and I'm standing there with our first responders, and it was one of Chief Milet's first experiences in town with this, and then it was suggested I go to the hospital because Mom had been transported there. When I got there, the father and husband were present and he didn't know what had happened to his daughter. And suddenly I was put in the position of having to tell him that his daughter had died. And I turned around, and 2 of our medics were standing there, and they were in tears and I was in tears, and it was just a devastating experience. I remember going to Overlake, and there were 2 teenage boys sitting there waiting for their friend to be treated and released, knowing that their other friend had been killed in an MVA on Coal Creek Parkway, and they felt like there was nothing that they could do. I remember being called by State Patrol to go to a home here in town to tell a mom and dad that their son had been killed in a car accident on Moses Lake, and having to sit there with them and let them embrace that and deal with that. And, these individual events have significant impacts, and we can all speak to that personally here now, because next Tuesday we'll be stopping to remember the fact that our own Jordan Jackson was struck down and killed in a vehicle accident that has left us as a community, as a department, completely devastated and changed forever. So these events have significant impacts, and I really want to thank the city for this Vision Zero. Let's hope that we get to that by 2030. We know we can't do it alone. We need citizens to back us up. This is an all-community effort, and I thank the city and commend the council for its efforts in this way. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your words. Much appreciated. And again, urge everybody who would like to be in that photograph to please stay in the chambers here. We'll get to that here shortly after the last proclamation. Yes.
Would like to also recognize one of our transportation commissioners, Loriana Marchiante, who's in the audience.
All right, with that, we are on the last proclamation, which I will read this evening about International Men's Day proclamation. Whereas November 19th is International Men's Day, a day to celebrate men's positive contributions to their communities and families and to bring attention to social problems disproportionately impacting men, and whereas the 2022 National Point in Time count found that men were 68% of individuals experiencing homelessness. And whereas, according to the Bellevue Police Department, 90 out of 125 people who died by suicide in Bellevue between 2013 and 2023 to date have been male. And whereas males were 73% of the more than 1,000 people who died from drug overdoses in King County in 2022. And whereas youth disconnection rates, which are the percentage of people ages 16 to 24 who are neither working nor in school, are particularly high for Native American males, with over 24%, and black males over 21% nationally. And whereas the City of Bellevue recognizes and celebrates men who contribute to the strength and vibrancy and leadership of our city, as we strive to be a place where each person can reach their full potential. Now therefore, I, on behalf of Lynn Robinson, Mayor of Bellevue, Washington, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim November 19th, 2023 as International Men's Day in Bellevue and encourage community members to celebrate the men in their lives. Signed, Lynn Robinson, Mayor, City of Bellevue. I believe we have Jimmy Singh here, who is, I believe, accompanied by his son, Chirag. And Jimmy is also on our Human Services Commission. Thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you for accepting the proclamation.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and members of the Council. My name is Jimmy Singh, and this is my son Chirag. This is Anne, and this is Baron. We all are here to express deep appreciation for this proclamation of November 19 as International Men's Day in Bellevue. The proclamation rightly points out problems of male homelessness, suicides, drug overdose, and disconnection. These problems are often stem from experiences men have in their childhood. So I am pleased to tell you about my family participation in the programs that are helping our boys become healthy men. One is called Let Me Run. I have coached this program here in Bellevue, and my son Nihal has been a participant. Let Me Run is a wellness program for boys, and not only it gets them exercise, but it develops their character. This lessons about competition, teamwork, positive thinking, and awareness about emotions. At the end of each practice, the boys shout, "Let me run, and let me be me, let me reach out, let me run." Another program involved in both is Boy Scouts, which you are already familiar, and both of my sons are in Scouts. So in the past, I have volunteered in Congregation of Homeless and seen firsthand how regular guys can end up in bad place and need help. But I appreciate that city's proclamation doesn't only talk about hardships, it also celebrates men for essential contributions they have made in our community. Thank you again for recognizing International Men's Day. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for those words. And since you're already up front here, why don't we get a picture with you, and then we'll have the transportation picture right after that. So come on up.
Did they have them on the screen behind him?
Right. Okay. Let's see here. Next on our agenda is approval. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. Now, on to oral communications. City Clerk, are there any speakers signed up to provide oral communications this evening?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. There are 6 speakers pre-registered this evening to speak. And so before I start calling names, I want to go over a few of the rules for tonight that the council's put in place. So the total time for oral communications is for a period of no more than 30 minutes, and all topics must relate to City of Bellevue government. Person speaking to items on tonight's agenda will be called first, and then if time remains, person speaking to other items not on the agenda will be called. In both of those cases, the presiding officer is authorized in both of those categories to prioritize those people who have not spoken to council within the last 60 days, or who will be speaking on a topic that will come in front of the council within the next 60 days. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to speak, and only 3 speakers will be allowed to speak to any one side of a particular topic. In addition, I need to mention that in compliance with Washington State campaign laws, regarding the use of public facilities during elections, no speaker may support or oppose a ballot measure or support or oppose a candidate for election, which may include one's own campaign. Any person beginning to discuss topics of this nature will be asked to stop. Finally, unique to this evening's agenda is a public hearing under item 9A. And if you have signed up for oral communications incorrectly and are going to make a comment regarding the mid-biennial budget this evening, I will move your name to item 9A, and you will not be able to speak under oral communications. So again, no budget-related topics under oral comms. And with that, I'll call our first speaker, who is Ann Silvers, I believe is joining in person. Thank you.
Good evening, council members. I'm Ann Silvers. I'm a counselor who has many years' experience working with women and men as individuals and couples. I'm here to thank you for doing the proclamation for International Men's Day. I appreciate your acknowledgement of the contributions men make to our lives and our communities. And I suggest that we might each follow your lead and personally express our appreciation to men in our lives on November 19th. I also want to thank you for mentioning some of the many concerning statistics about the state of their well-being. One set of statistics that always stands out to me is ones that provide a snapshot view that males are the majority of those whose lives are cut short by what we're calling deaths of despair. Suicides, drug overdoses, and alcohol-related deaths. As a counselor, I see the struggles behind these statistics and the isolation created by narratives that make it difficult for men to ask for help and find help when they seek it. A woman who replied to a tweet I posted yesterday for International Men's Day stated one of the main pain points so well. In her words, nobody should feel like they've got nowhere to go. I hope that we continue the conversation begun by this proclamation, identify areas of need, explore initiatives that promote well-being, and work together to build a community where everyone thrives. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker on our list is Joe Kunzler, and I believe Mr. Kunzler is joining us virtually. Mr. Kunzler, can you hear me?
Yeah, thanks for
Thank
the
you.
unmute request. Let me turn on the volume on this other call. Okay, thank you. Joe Kunzler here. Just want to thank you for that proclamation on International Man's Month. I think it's great. We have Women's History Month in March, and hopefully we'll be celebrating Claudia Badass Suchi and Lynn Robinson at that time with Link Light Rail coming to your beautiful city. But I also have to bring this up. I spoke to the Anti-Defamation League about your little Zimmerman problem. They want me to ask you to please enforce your council rules to the teeth because in the framing of your resolution, I'll put it this way: real men do not bully women. Real men do not abuse women who are simply demanding decency in the commons. Real men come clean about their business dealings. Real men are like your deputy mayor, Jared Naramos. Real men are like Ari Hoffman and not Alex Zimmerman. And I want to thank you for your public service, all of you, male, female, what have you, and keep being awesome every single day. Thank you. That's my comments.
Thank you. The next speaker on the list is Joni Vanderberg. I believe may be joining us virtually. Ms. Vanderberg, can you hear me?
I can, thank you. Yes, I'm Joni Vanderberg. I'm here representing Trees for Livability, and we just want to make sure that tree retention, stronger tree codes, and support of a healthy tree canopy remains front and center for the council. It's frankly been a little frustrating to see that these, new codes, revised codes have been pushed out to the beginning of next year for review. Meanwhile, we've got developers trying to remove 10 to 12 trees of significance at 10316 Southeast 25th Street, representing over 1,000 years of tree growth. And the challenge is that these developers are not replanting at the same percent of vegetation that they're removing. And so, often even what they do plant dies before the new homeowner moves in. I've seen this happen time and time again in my Robbinswood neighborhood. We are losing traction and going backwards quickly. Case in point, 1530 Southeast 25th Street, 3 significant fir trees removed, no new trees planted. 2403 153rd Avenue, 2 significant evergreens removed, 1 maple tree planted, which has since died. 2551 154th Avenue, 2 maple trees removed with the new house and no new trees planted. And unfortunately, I could go on, and I'm happy to share before and after photos of all of these lots as evidence. So with these new codes, we need really to require a permit for removal, define minimum tree density requirements, prioritize the retainment of significant trees, and create clear plans for reporting and enforcement. And we need to do this now before more devastation and deforestation occurs. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker on our list is Christian Dorset, who I do not see connected virtually. Mr. Dorset, are you joining us in person? Okay, moving on to the next speaker. That is Sandeep Venkataran. I'm sorry. I also have a long last name.
Good evening, respected Mayor Robinson and council members and my fellow residents of Bellevue. My name is Sandeep Venkatraman. I'm a practicing nephrologist. I live here in Bellevue with my wife Sumitra and our 6-month baby boy. We're in the back. Thank you, Mayor Robinson, for the invitation to talk briefly about meditation. I have been practicing heartfulness meditation for the last 14 years. Heartfulness is a non-denominational, free of charge meditation practice which has trained over 1 million practitioners all over the world for over 100 years. The focus of the practice is to connect us to the light and love within our hearts. Numerous studies have shown meditation to be beneficial in reducing stress, burnout, helping with sleep, and with mood disorders. There's also recent data suggesting it has beneficial effects even at a genetic level. Here in Bellevue, Heartfulness conducts regular group meditation sessions every Sunday morning at 8:30 a.m. at Northwest Arts Center, which has been going on for over 15 years. I would like to extend an invitation to the mayor, to all the council members, and my fellow resident to come join us in meditating on any given Sunday morning. Our guide, Kamlesh Patel, has recently published a book called Spiritual Anatomy. I wanted to finish by reading an excerpt from his book. He says, "I'm here to help. The journey can be long, and it would be nice to have friends along the way. My life's mission is to prepare love-filled hearts, blooming as celestial spiritual flowers in the diverse garden of humanity, and living fearless, inspired lives. This book is a sincere effort to fulfill that mission and I hope it inspires you to follow the path of self-realization. Finally, I would love to present to the council members a copy of the book with your permission.
Certainly, thank you so much, and thank you for the invitation, and you can get the city clerk the books, and they'll be sure to distribute that amongst the council members. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, the final pre-registered speaker is Alex Zimmerman.
Sieg Heil, my dirty damn Nazi fascist and anti-Semite. My name is Alex Zimmerman, and I live in Bellevue for 35 years. Right now, I want to explain a little bit my analysis about election, what is we have here. First, what is I want talking is, thank you very much, people who vote for me. It's approximately 20%, and I very appreciate you. Second time, what is I want talking about is very critical, very important. Approximately 140,000 people in Bellevue never vote for these people, for council. What does this mean? It's more than 85%, probably 87% never vote for council. What does this mean? This means we have a junta who support only 10% people who belong to democratic mafia. The same percentage what is have Adolf Hitler, sorry, German Nazi, is Soviet communist. They only registered their member. If we don't have registers, but percentage same, 10%. This election so unique because I don't think, and I have 12 elections before, staying in political for all my life. It's very unique situation because we take black men out, Jeremy, you know what this mean, replace him with Iranian Muslim men. This don't have sense. You know what this mean? So you're not only anti-Semite, you are pure racist because they elect you, this democratic foundation, you know what this mean, basic, you know what this means, this 10% approximately. You can see this in statistic, what is have election. Support them, you know what this mean. Why you take black men out? He will 100% have chance for be re-elected. Because you don't want, what is this, two people, one black, one Iranian Muslim, will be here because it's totally control you, because you are junta, you are bandita. This is exactly who you are. Is this very important because people in Bellevue, there's approximately 160,000 for my understanding, don't understand. When there's only 10% control everything and elect all council, this a pure 100% Nazi, Gestapo, fascist junta. His junta. It's exactly what has happened before in human history. You know what this means? We cannot believe them because by definition, they all bandita. You understand what I mean? So right now I speak to everybody. Stand up, America. Thank you very much.
Mr. Zimmerman, you're entitled to your opinion, but let me state that no one here agrees with you in any way, shape, or form and denounce your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. That does bring us to the end of our pre-registered list, and we do still have a few minutes of oral communications left. So I'd ask if there's anyone joining us online or in the audience in council chambers who would like to make a comment to the council, please raise your hand. Okay. Deputy Mayor, I do not see any additional hands. I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you so much. No reports of boards and commissions, so we'll go to the report of the city manager on data and technology accomplishment. Interim city manager, could you introduce that, please?
Thank you. Good evening, Deputy Mayor, Mayor, and council members. I have one item tonight under the city manager's report, and this is an overview of the city's data and technology accomplishments. Staff will provide a summary of the work towards high-performance government priorities, highlighting the ways the city has advanced work in data analytics. And joining for the presentation, we have Sabris Schneider, Chief Information Officer, and PJ Rodriguez, Chief Operating Officer both from the Information Technology Department. And with that, I will turn it over to Sabra.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. We are excited to be before you tonight to talk about progress toward leveraging data and technology. As Deputy City Manager Carlson said, one of your priorities under high performance government. We are going to talk about some of the achievements over the course of this priority, and this progress reflects a lot of partnership across the city. Council is already familiar with at least some of these projects, and while we're here presenting them, we did want to let you know that it's the work of many departments reflected in starting to achieve this priority. We are excited at where we've made it to date, and we're excited to continue pushing the needle on this work and continuing to mature it over time. Thank you very much for letting us speak about the accomplishments toward the priority this evening, and I will turn it over to PJ to talk about some specifics.
Thank you. Good evening, Council, Deputy Mayor, and Mayor. Next slide, please. This priority focuses on three major areas that we'll talk about in the subsequent slides. So next slide. These first set of slides focuses on interactive dashboards and reports, which includes the business survey and performance dashboards, which assesses the health of Bellevue's economy and inform policy and programming. It also tracks employment, commercial office space, workforce data, tourism, small business performance, and global competitiveness. The next dashboard is also the environmental performance dashboard, which provides progress status on towards City of Bellevue's sustainability goals outlined in the environmental stewardship plan with 5 major focus areas, which is climate change, energy, mobility and land use, materials management, and waste and natural systems. The final dashboard in this slide is the Bellevue Performance website, which provides a place for the public to track key performance and key community indicators for each council strategic target area. Next slide. This set of slides focuses on reporting community data, such as the police transparency dashboard, which provides information for a more informed community regarding public safety, focusing on earning the public's trust and enhancing community engagement. The State of the Neighborhoods website provides information on neighborhood livability, diversity, housing development, mobility, environment, safety, investments, and connections. The Bellevue Equity Atlas project, which is scheduled to complete in the end of 2023, aims to provide disaggregated data which will help the city better understand equity impacts and improve strategic planning and decision-making from an equity perspective regarding city investments and projects. The final slide is the Council Priorities Dashboard. The Council Priorities Dashboard aims to provide a progress for each strategic target area and council priorities that fall within those strategic target areas. This information includes key performance and key community indicators. And the dashboard was launched in 2022 and is updated on a quarterly basis, with the next update expected to be in the next several weeks. I will now turn it back to Sabra to talk about the 2023 City Digital Cities Award.
I am excited to announce to Council that Bellevue received second place in the Digital Cities Award this year. I know you all remember me coming and talking to you about this annually. This will be the 6th year in a row that Bellevue has placed in the top 3. And we combined these presentations because many of the things that we've bragged on in the quite extensive report that ties into the digital cities also tie to your high-performance government priorities, including the data and analytics priority. This highly competitive survey looks at jurisdictions within their population category. Ours happens to be 125K to 250K, so we're on the smaller side of this population category. The survey focuses on digital services across 9 different areas. Data and analytics is one of those areas. Cybersecurity is another. Staff training and development, cloud and networking. So it really runs the gamut. And just like with the data and analytics presentation, this does not reflect work from just IT. This is work from across the city. We talk a lot about engagement and comms and the tie-in to that with our website and technology and multiple languages. So I'm thrilled we placed in the top 3 again. And I'm excited that Councilmember Zahn and Councilmember Lee, I believe, are going to Atlanta to accept this award on behalf of the city later this week at the Digital Cities Dinner. So thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that and appreciate all the hard work. And maybe come back. Hopefully it'll be, 7 years in a row, top 3, maybe? Knock on wood. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. I think that's the only report under the city manager this evening, so we will move on to the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes. So now we're going to move on to public hearing this evening on our 2023-2024 budget and 2023-2029 capital investment program. Did you want to set this up at all, interim city manager?
Yes, thank you very much. Deputy Mayor and council members, tonight's public hearing is an opportunity for our residents and other stakeholders to provide input on the proposed mid-biennium budget update, including all the proposed levies, taxes, fees, and rates to aid the city council in updating the 23 through 24 budget and the 23 through 29 capital investment program. Following the public hearing, staff are seeking council direction to return at the November 20th council meeting with all the needed legislation to adopt the full mid-biennium budget. So joining at the staff table today are Evan Phillips, our budget manager, and John Risha, director, both from Finance and Asset Management Department. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Risha.
Thank you, Acting City Manager Carlson. Deputy Mayor, Mayor, council members. Tonight before you is public hearing on the mid-biennium budget. For frame of reference, mid-biennium budgets are supplemental in nature, an opportunity to make sure that we're on track with your original policy direction and make any technical adjustments to our budget that are necessary throughout the year. We have transmitted over to you proposed budget amendments and draft information for your consideration. And tonight is our public hearing on that process.
And it doesn't appear our slides are being pulled up just yet, but I did want to take the time to remind everyone present about the calendar that we have. So the journey we've been on as part of this mid-buy. We started the conversation, I believe, on October 9th. This is a fun little memory test for me. October 9th, we had a calendar update on this mid-biennium. October 13th, we did a mid-biennium overview and general fund forecast update. October 26th, we had our friends from Development Services provide an update for the Development Services fees rates, as well as the school impact fees for 2 of our local school districts. And this is our public hearing tonight. And again, we are asking for a direction by the end of the evening on whether to bring back a package, a full mid-buy package and all the associated legislation for November 20th, which is next Monday. So with that, I put it back to the Deputy Mayor for the public hearing.
Terrific, and thank you so much. So with that, do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I move to open the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you. This evening, there is one pre-registered speaker, and before I call that name, I will mention that the council did not receive any written comments this evening, so there wasn't anything in your desk packet.
Thank you.
So with that, I'll call our first name, who is Alex Zimmerman. I believe, has already left. Okay. At this point, I would ask if there was anyone else who would like to make a comment regarding the mid-biennium budget to the council. If so, please raise your hand. I do not see any hands online. I'll turn it back to you.
Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any opposed? No. Yeah. Okay. So there was no public comment. So any additional color before we take a motion here? And my colleagues may have some additional comments as well, but I thought I'd check in with you first before doing that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Yes.
As the next step in this process is to receive feedback from you and guidance so that we can prepare final materials for adoption for next week. There was one matter that Deputy Mayor that you raised and other council members asked about, and that was relative to transportation maintenance. Following the Transportation Benefit District conversations, there was questions about how farther behind are we going to get with relative to transportation maintenance, and could anything be done in 2024 using current dollars? While we do our larger work at looking at the overall flow and the policies behind how the revenues flow to the right spaces. We have worked with the Transportation Department to come up with a one-year proposal, one time only with one-time monies, which would shift from the construction phase of a CIP that was not yet fully funded, but not take off course the design phase, which is underway, and fund approximately $1.65 million worth of transportation maintenance. Evan will give you a little more detail on what that could look like, and we'd be happy to answer some questions on that particular item. And that was the only item we had currently as an outstanding.
Right, so just a little bit more detail. This would be transferring to what John said. It's $1.65 million from project PW-R-207, which is for improvements to the intersection of 114th Avenue Southeast and Southeast 8th Street. So in our West Bellevue neighborhood, not that far from City Hall. There is enough money, as John said, to continue design, so this would really not halt the project. This would not delay the project, and it would compete for additional dollars to complete the construction for the 25-26 budget process, but there is enough funding in 2024 to do the design work that is needed to complete the project. So we did try to identify a project that was limited in terms of impact within our CIP to move forward on something that will make an impact in the next year, which would be adding some additional funding for maintenance. And to give you a little bit of flavor in terms of what this would cover, this would catch up on some small concrete projects, slope mowing, traffic control device maintenance. This would also make sure that we spend money on our contracts for some additional work in terms of painting edge lanes and bike lanes. This is regular work that the city transportation department works with contractors on, and they try to make sure that those are repainted every year. This is to catch up and make sure we're continuing with those commitments, as well as paving and concrete sidewalk repair as well. The important thing about the funding identified here in the projects therein is we did work with our transportation department to make sure that this funding could go out the door within 2024. So this isn't just increasing the appropriation, but this is commitments from staff to ensure that if council decides to move forward with this as an option, that we can actually execute and put the money out literally on the street next year. So this is something that it would be transferred into the general fund, so the general fund money would be seen there, and if council decides to move forward with this option, could be reflected next week in the adoption materials as well. So this could be an effective policy change by next Monday.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, and thank you for your hard work to look for some additional money to kind of cover that gap. And just to be clear, again, so that would not put that project at that intersection here of Southeast 8th, and was it 114th? I would not put that project in jeopardy whatsoever, right? That's still going forward. It's just, we can push that out a year, basically, correct? Okay, fantastic. Well, great. Well, with that, I'll move it to my colleagues here with any comments or questions. I'll start on my left, and we'll go down to my right, and then sorry. Yeah, and then I'll go online to Mayor Robinson and Councilmember Lee, who has his hand up. So with that, I'll start with Councilmember Zahn.
Well, thank you. I'm really grateful that you were able to take a hard look at the transportation budget to make sure that we were able to find some funds on the maintenance piece. Would that also, when we talk about maintenance, include street sweeping and cleaning brush back? Because I think that was the other thing we had heard, is that for some of our sidewalks and bike lanes, that the reduced maintenance meant that sometimes you have blackberries that grow right into the lane.
We believe that some of that might be the slope mowing that would be done, but some of the most important work that they prioritized and the ability to be additive in the next year was going to really be around some of the sidewalk maintenance and painting. And so they were looking at a prioritized list, and we believe that that will be hitting some of those key areas that were part of the original conversations.
Okay, great. Well, I'm really grateful that you were able to make that happen, because we definitely, after 3+ years, have noticed the deficit in that area. And I didn't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Zahn. Councilmember Stokes?
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation and for Councilmember Zahn's comments on this. I just wanted to add to this that is mentioned about the Transportation Benefit District. This has nothing completely to do with that.
No, it does not, Councilmember, but it, not in technical sense, but in its broader sense, we actually listened to the feedback that was provided during that conversation to look at current appropriations, current opportunities to bring forward a solution, and recognize a larger conversation that still needs to take place. This is not about funding a transportation benefit district or any other work there. This is all within normal transportation funding of the city.
Yeah, that's very good. That's what I wanted to get and to let the public know, because we had a good conversation about that. But the TBD actually has a lot of process to go forward anyhow to use it. So it's totally different, and this is really a fantastic effort to lead us to taking care of this point, and I'm very happy to move it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stokes. Councilmember Robertson?
Thanks. Yeah, I support using the one-time money from that delayed project for maintenance. I think the council next year should look at the long-term, look for some long-term structural stability for maintenance, in addition to long-term funding for right-of-way acquisition and capacity projects. The bike lane the bike lane study that's out right now, or survey that's out right now, we've gotten a lot of emails from people. I think that people really will support more bike lanes, just they don't want them to be at the expense of other travel lanes. And so finding long-term transportation funding, program, which would include the ability to acquire additional real estate so that we can add the bike lanes without taking away road lanes, as well as maintain what we build, I think are all really good things. And I would support having that one-time money so the council has time next year to really dive into creating a forward-thinking, financial plan for our transportation needs going forward, because as Bellevue continues to grow, we're going to need to make sure that we can continue to grow our transportation infrastructure system. With that said, I support this, and once it is time for motion, I will make the motion to move this forward, which I will also support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Robertson. Councilmember Barksdale?
All right, thank you. No questions. I support the proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lee, who is joining us remotely this evening.
Thank you. I appreciate this discussion and also the effort for the staff to make this recommendation, because I think it's important. Unquestionably, we don't neglect our maintenance. People do see it, and people are affected by it. But it came up, of course, at the Transportation Benefit District, that discussion, when we and the council and also the public feel that, we how come we don't have money for maintenance? And then we have to resort to a new taxing source. I think that's important. We need to make sure that we do not, you know, neglect something which is important, and then suddenly find out we have no money for it, and we have to, cover it. And so, like Councilmember Robinson said, I agree. We need to be looking at the long term in projects in priority. We need to, especially if it's an ongoing thing. And so it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't feel right. So I support this. However, it doesn't feel right. It's like we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. But we know we're paying Paul to fix the street maintenance. But who's robbing? What are we robbing from? And we know the CIP is, but that's a project that need to have money to do also. We cannot just say let's wait until next year or the year after. Then say, we don't have any money because we have to give it to street maintenance. So let's figure out where else can we get the money from. That doesn't make sense, right? So I think we need to do a better job of prioritizing, forecasting, and figuring out, to some extent. Of course, there's uncertainties, but we got to do the best we can. And I believe the Bellevue staff has always been the best I know. And so, I just want to be sure that we have real certainty and effort made. And I think we can prove Bellevue has always done a good job in forecasting, even long-range CIPs. If we haven't, we need to figure out how can we do it in a better way so that we do not just arbitrarily, or in this case, seems to be, because it's necessitated by this maintenance problem and by the TBD problem. So I support this, but I'm requesting some real consideration, scrutiny of better projecting, better prioritizing for the long run as well as in the near run, obviously. That's for sure.
Thank you, Councilmember Lee. Mayor Robinson, who is also joining us virtually this evening.
Thank you. Yes, I definitely support staff recommendation. And I too look forward to looking at all the different ways we can generate the funding we need to maintain our roads to the standards that we had them before COVID hit and everything changed for us. I know we're doing a parking study, and so I'll be interested to hear how those recommendations come into play with this type of funding, if they would provide any funding for these projects. So looking forward to hearing more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. And I'm in favor of moving this forward as well. So I'll turn it over to Councilmember Robertson to provide the motion, to provide direction on this, and to bring this back on November 20th.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I move to direct staff to draft all necessary legislation for the mid-biennium budget adoption for council consideration at a future meeting as discussed.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. That passes, and we'll see you on the 20th. Thank you so much. All right, next we're ready to get into our 3 study session items for this evening. The first one on a regional animal services code update. Interim City Manager.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and council members. Our first study session is on proposed code updates to the Regional Animal Services Code. King County, City of Bellevue, and 23 other cities have an interlocal agreement for the county to provide animal services throughout Bellevue. And we, as part of that agreement, need to keep current with King County's code updates so that we're in alignment. After the presentation, staff are seeking council direction to prepare and bring back for later adoption an ordinance updating the Bellevue City Code to align with the King County Code. And joining us at the table today, Lacey Jane Wolf, our Assistant Director of Governmental Affairs in the City Manager's Office, and Sujin Kim, Assistant City Attorney with the City Attorney's Office. And with that, I will hand it over to Lacey Jane.
Thank you, Interim City Manager. Good evening. I'm Lacey Jane Wolf, Assistant Director of Intergovernmental Relations. As Diane said, I'm joined here by Sujin Kim from the City Attorney's Office. And we're here before you tonight seeking council direction related to Bellevue's Animal Care and Control Code. Just as Interim City Manager Carlson mentioned, Bellevue and 23 other cities participate in an ILA with King County to provide animal services. And per the ILA, Bellevue needs to update its Animal Care and Control Code to be consistent with King County's latest update. Here is the formal wording of the direction that we're seeking tonight. It's a bit of a mouthful, so I'll summarize by saying that we are seeking council direction to prepare an ordinance to incorporate King County's updated code by reference and bring it back at a future council meeting. Tonight, I'd like to start with a brief overview and remind you all of the ILA between King County, Bellevue, and these other cities, then describe the changes that were made to King County's code in August. Sujin then will tell you about the attachments and how the city code would be impacted, and finally, we'll wrap up with next steps. So as a reminder, Bellevue and 23 other cities entered into an interlocal agreement in 2017 with King County for the county to provide animal services. As part of this ILA, King County provides animal services to participating cities, and this includes shelter services, licensing services, and field services, which includes when the county is called out to enforce animal code or to address a potentially dangerous animal or similar situations. Generally speaking, the major advantage to Bellevue in participating in a regional animal services program is that it's more efficient and cost-effective for participating cities. Without the regional program, each city would need to operate its own animal services program, presumably at a higher cost. So turning now to the recent updates to King County Code. In August, King County updated Title 11 of its code, which is related to animal licensing, fees, penalties, enforcement, impound, redemption, and sheltering services. The major goal for King County's update was to align with state law standards. The county also used the opportunity to do some cleanup and significantly reorganize the code. In general, I think these are things that the average pet owner in Bellevue might not notice or experience any changes. I do want to call out one notable difference between King County's new code and its old code. And that is that King County has now moved to using a two-tier system for animals deemed as potentially dangerous or dangerous. Until August, the county used a one-tier system, but they were really an outlier in the state. The state uses this two-tier system, and most counties and cities had adopted a similar system. And under this two-tier system, owners of animals that are deemed potentially dangerous or dangerous have to follow additional requirements, which include requirements for controlling or restraining that animal, special licensing, and things like that. So King County made this change to align with the definitions in state law and to be consistent with the majority of counties and cities in Washington state. The updated code is clearer, so residents can more easily understand laws related to animals, which I think is a benefit. And the changes to the King County Code support the goals of the Regional Animal Services Program, which includes protecting public safety. Returning again to the requirement of the ILA and how this county's code update impacts Bellevue, is that the ILA requires Bellevue and participating cities to update our code to be substantially similar when King County updates its code. And this is really important for a couple of reasons. Consistency, is key to this regional program. It's because it's more cost effective, and King County can efficiently operate and enforce animal code across the participating jurisdictions. Enforcing a patchwork of different codes across the 23 cities and unincorporated King County would not be so cost effective. Consistency is also beneficial for animal owners, complainants, and the public in general. And finally, we need Bellevue's code to be consistent with King County's to be able to enforce the animal care and control code. And this is an important part of protecting public safety. I'll turn it over to Sujin for this slide.
Good evening. I'm here mainly to answer questions, but just to note that you had 3 attachments, A, B, and C, and those together combined to show you what Bellevue's code incorporating King County Code Title 11 would look like if you were to direct us to come back.
Thanks, Susan. So just wrapping us up here, Bellevue staff's recommendation is to incorporate King County Code by reference to remain in compliance with our interlocal agreement. And we are seeking direction from council tonight. If directed, staff would prepare a draft ordinance and bring it to council at a future meeting. And that concludes our presentation, Deputy Mayor. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, well, thank you so much for the presentation, Lisa Jane and Sujin. Thank you so much for being here. From my perspective, pretty straightforward in terms of updating our code and getting aligned with county and state code as well, but I will look for any hands raised that may want to talk here or have a comment. It doesn't look like there's anything online. I don't see anything, so Councilmember Robertson?
Yeah, I'll make a quick comment and then I'll make the motion.
okay.
So yeah, this makes all the sense in the world. If we have one system, we need to make sure that the animal control officers coming to Bellevue know what the rules are, and they don't have to read our code every time they cross the jurisdictional boundaries. I think it's great. So I move to direct staff to prepare an ordinance for council consideration at a future meeting, updating Bellevue City Code Title 8, Animal Care and Control, by repealing certain existing chapters and sections and replacing with King County Code Title 11 by incorporating it by reference.
What she said, I said.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you again. All right, interim city manager, would you like to introduce our next study session item?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, Mayor, and council members. The next study session this evening will be a discussion of the proposed 2024 administrative budget and work program for a Regional Coalition for Housing, or ARCH. After the presentation, staff are seeking council direction to prepare the legislation for council consideration at a later date, approving the proposed 2024 administrative budget and work program, and that would be consistent with the requirements of the ARCH interlocal agreement. Joining at the staff table today, we have Lindsay Masters, Executive Director for ARCH, Linda Abe, and Emil King. Emil is the Planning Director for Community Development Department. And with that, I will hand it over to Emil.
Thank you for the introduction, Interim City Manager Carlson, and good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council. Each fall, ARCH does visit its member cities for review and approval of the following year's administrative budget and work program, so that's what we're here tonight. I'm just going to offer up a few brief comments before I hand things over to Lindsay. I do want to note this is a complement to the capital funding round that ARCH does for the trust fund, so this is focused on the admin budget and work program. In Q1 of each year, we do visit for the capital funding requests under a separate item. I want to note Bellevue is one of the founding members of ARCH, and they've offered great support over to the city over the past few decades, so we're looking to continue that good work moving forward. A couple noteworthy things I do want to mention is their key role in administering the ownership and rental units that we do have in the city of Bellevue, and as those continue to grow, there's increased need for their support on those efforts. They're also a key part of our housing stability program, so that's the 1590 monies that we're in year 3 of implementing. And then finally, just noting the support they do for our work on planning initiatives where needed, and clearly noting that the city of Bellevue is the ultimate decision maker for any policy issues that do come before the council. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Lindsay. She'll go through the presentation, and Linda and I are happy to answer any questions at the end if needed.
Thanks, Emil. So I'm just going to make sure this is working. Nope. Should I just use the keyboard? No.
Is it not advancing? Would you like to speak to it? Or we could take a quick 5-minute break and come back to it.
Either way, I think I can get it started. Yeah, let's just get it started.
Okay.
So thanks for having me here tonight. It's great to be back. I'm here to talk about our 2024, great, right on time, proposed budget and work program. And to do that, I'm going to cover just briefly highlights from the budget recommendation, and then priorities within the work program that were identified by the Arch Executive Board, as well as some highlights from our ongoing work in Bellevue within our work program. So just a quick snapshot of our budget proposal. The board this year elected to maintain the status quo in terms of our basic staffing and services. In light of an upcoming strategic planning process, we wanted to defer any significant changes to those, other than one identified area of need that emerged from our collaboration with the Bellevue City Attorney's Office that provides us with legal services. Some additional funding was identified as a need there, and the board supported that. Bellevue's contributions to our budget total about $485,000 as proposed in 2024. That's approximately 21% of our total budget. Separately, as Emil mentioned, we also have a staff position funded through revenues from the Housing Stability Program, so we have a dedicated position within our budget for that. I'll briefly walk through the approved priorities within our work program. If you've perused, our entire work program is pretty lengthy, covers a lot of different areas, and so it helps us each year to get that guidance from our board as to what our priorities should be. Next year, we are expecting to have a final strategic plan come out of the process that was started this year in 2023. And so we would be expecting to develop some actions and recommendations from that we could bring back to our members. Just a bit about the timing of this process, so you have a little bit more context for it when you do have information coming your way. We have been growing incrementally over the last 5 years, and I think really trying to right-size staff to the current programs and services that Arch has had in place for many years, and so felt that we were in a good place of stability and a solid foundation to take a broader look at the needs, and particularly in light of the growing interest and demand for affordable housing in the region, interest from our members in taking up more initiatives. We are hoping that the result of that at a minimum is going to be reaffirming all the members' commitment to the coalition, really clarifying where Arch can best play a role in supporting your efforts to promote affordable housing, and then really identify those strategic priorities where we can have the biggest impact. A couple of other priorities within the work program that are somewhat interconnected. For some time, we've had in our priorities the idea that we'd support members to consider revenue options for affordable housing. That's something we convened elected officials to discuss last year. This year, we worked more closely with city staff to talk both about potential revenue priorities as well as an additional priority. Both of these were at the guidance of the executive board. And that second priority was around transit-oriented development. That's in response to, sorry, just gonna get some water. A bill that was debated last year and expected to come back next year. We did have pretty productive sessions with a lot of input from the various city staff from all the members, as well as some additional help from city lobbyists, and we're able to develop some suggested language that we've since shared with our members for consideration. Just to explain the chart in the slide, this is a snapshot from the last year about statewide demand for the tax-exempt bond resources, which are roughly triple the need of the available resources. So this is not a unique problem to Arch, it's a statewide issue. Another priority that we had identified as a bit of a carryover from this year is to help explore policy options for dealing with how rents are increased within affordable housing. So the the housing units that you're creating and Arch is monitoring the covenants on your behalf, have particular rules and parameters about how rents may increase. We've experienced a lot of challenges with what we have in place in current properties, and so wanted to elevate some options for members to consider in the next year. We also understand members will be finishing up their comp plan updates, so wanted to make sure we continue to provide any support needed there in terms of housing data and other support. And then finally, we don't want to lose focus on the need to continue stewarding that existing affordable housing while we're also focusing on trying to support development of new housing. We have seen, as Emil mentioned, and this is just an illustration in the slide, significant growth in the number of properties that we're monitoring, so continuing to kind of keep an eye on the staffing ratios for that. We are also really privileged to be able to help individual members advance special projects within their jurisdiction's boundaries. As these unique opportunities arise, we provide technical assistance, sometimes support with feasibility studies. And so we had a couple of exciting projects start to come to fruition this year. One located on a city-donated property in the city of Kenmore, right in downtown Kenmore, that will be developed by Plymouth Housing, and another property next to the Overlake Light Rail Station in Redmond that will create over 300 units of affordable housing there. Shifting gears to talk about how some of our work program has played out in Bellevue, and kind of staying on the topic of public land and unique special projects. We've been excited also to work with the Bellevue staff here on exploring those opportunities on city-owned properties, a couple of which are currently under consideration, and then also continuing to support the city in helping to support development of another TOD project in the Spring District located on Sound Transit land, with a portion of land also donated by the city. So that one's pretty far along. We're expecting the financing package for that to be completed in the next year and hope it will get under construction in 2024. We are also pretty excited about how the Housing Stability Program has been developing. As Emil mentioned, this is our third year of putting out a request for proposals. We had more applications this year than we have in the past, so starting to generate some new interest in that program. We put out an RFP for $10 million this year and received proposals requesting about $15 million. We are expecting those recommendations to come back to you early next year. Some other activities include, again, supplying housing data as needed and other items for the city's work on its comprehensive plan, providing other technical support, particularly around evaluating affordable housing incentives, updates to the MFTE code, which I think are topic for later tonight, and then working with development services on implementation of the recently approved permit fee reduction program. As Emil mentioned, we also are working directly with development partners as they go through your process to take advantage of affordable housing incentives and include affordable units within their projects. We have several active projects in various stages of development that over the next few years we hope are going to create about 350 units of affordable housing, most of these taking advantage of the MFTE program. A couple also that will have longer-term land use covenants. And then we, again, are continuing to steward some of the projects that have been developed since Arch's founding roughly 30 years ago all the way to today. We've got 16 different homeownership developments, 16 different rental developments with affordable units in a private market rate setting, and then roughly 30 projects that we've invested funds in as well. So with that, we are looking for your direction and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the great presentation, and thank your board as well on all the work they've done on this 2024 budget and work program. I'll just say a couple of words before turn it over to my colleagues for questions and comments, but certainly some sobering statistics in there, but also some encouraging activities. Such as one of the last slides there of the 1,700 total units, coming to the marketplace, but 353 of them being affordable, so that's fantastic. Really appreciate your comments as well about the continued stewardship of existing affordable housing, always so important. I know we always want to focus on more, but maintaining and being the proper stewards of those units is really important as well. So I personally am in favor of moving this forward, but again, just want to thank you so much for the great presentation tonight. Having said that, I'm assuming there's going to be some colleagues who might want to speak to this this evening. I'm looking on both sides. If you have hands up, looks like Councilmember Bucks, you're okay? Okay, then Councilmember Robertson.
Thank you. No, always happy to see Arch. It's been a great partnership. The PowerPoint, I 100% agree with everything in the PowerPoint. When I dug into some of the details on the agenda memo and on the 18-page Arch memorandum, I had some questions. So one of the things that so I've been on the council 14 years, and Arch's role has changed in those 14 years. Arch used to provide support, data, management, and be the trusted advisor of cities across the east side. But a year or two ago, they started becoming advocates. And I know that I am not alone among council members in the east side who was a little bit concerned by that. And my understanding is that Arch learned a lesson about trying to lobby its members to implement and pass certain legislation. And I was really happy to learn that they learned a lesson and that I would not be doing that, because they're meant to support cities' efforts in policymaking, not advocate and drive those efforts, in my opinion. But then I'm looking at the information in greater detail, and it looks like Arch is planning to continue to do exactly that. On page, is this page 10? Page 10 of the Arch memo, it talks about that tenant protection policies, share information and help identify common policy priorities. Great. That's great. Facilitate considerations of local regulations and help encourage consistent protections. So again, being an advocate, that's not something that Arch really should be doing. Because your job is not to lobby your members, it is to provide support. Again, same thing with the inclusionary zoning. Assist members to develop policy solutions and work with staff to find the code amendments. To develop coordinated, I highlighted it, but I can't see what I'm supposed to be reading here. It's throughout there. It's also in the city's memo, on the first and second bullets, about implementing actions and regulations, facilitate and advance proposals. I'm a little bit concerned, and I'd be very eager to hear what your survey is showing, that Arch is changing its, so one big question, or one question on this and then another question, is changing its focus from being the trusted advisor and manager to being an advocate and a driver of policies instead of a supporter of policies. So I'd like you to address that, number one. Number two, on the inclusionary zoning, I know that when Arch came and presented to the Kirkland Planning Commission, either earlier this year or last year, there was questions about whether Arch had actually done any economic analysis of the policies it was pushing, not supporting, but pushing, because what some of the economic analysis has shown is that the more you layer onto a developer or property owner, the less you're likely to see it. So say you require 25% of units to be inclusionary, you might get 0 units, not just affordable, but market, because people, it's just does not pencil for them to build that development of housing if they have to do 25% affordable. So if there's going to be inclusionary in Bellevue or elsewhere, whether it's an incentive or mandatory, we have to right size it from an economic development or economic analysis perspective. So my first question is about advocacy. My second one is, if Arch is going to be helping develop these policies and or advocating for them, what economic analysis are you planning to do in the micro market of each city to make it clear to the policymakers, or make policymakers comfortable with the fact that the goals that they want to achieve will actually be achievable? So, 2 questions. Thank you.
All right, I'll give my best shot. If I miss anything, feel free to follow up. We do carefully consider the wording that goes into the work program. I think one of the items that you mentioned was something that we had some feedback and comments from our members on wanting to include something in around tenant protections, but then also some feedback from individual board members about how to frame that and how to write that so that it is clear that we are supporting their efforts if that's something that they identify as a need. I think the piece you have about encouraging really was meant to emphasize the consistency part. That's sort of an overarching objective of Arches, that if we can possibly encourage consistent approaches throughout the region, that's something that we hopefully can play a role in encouraging. But we were very clear and careful not to get into specific recommendations on those issues, understanding that those are going to be determined locally, and staff will identify for us if there's a need for Arch to play a role. I will just add, we live in this tension every day about different members having different priorities and different sort of policy positions and processes as well. And so we are constantly aware of sort of those boundaries and those tensions and do our best to navigate those, but we also welcome the feedback and we're looking to learn from our process. On the economic analysis piece, we did have some involvement in some proposals in Kirkland earlier this year, and that really builds on many years of Arch staff work with cities to help evaluate affordable housing incentives and how you might trade those off for some inclusionary housing policies. There's a couple of things that we encourage cities to look at, and we've recently expanded that analysis to try to answer more of the questions that policymakers have. Historically, we've really taken a look at how do you value the development incentives that you're providing, and then what's the cost or the offset of requiring some amount of affordable housing to be included. And we try to emphasize that you have to provide a greater incentive than what you're taking back in terms of a requirement. Beyond that, though, I think increasingly there's been a lot of questions about overall development feasibility, given to other dynamics in the real estate market. And so we've expanded on a tool and helped to build out a tool that could also answer questions about that. So in the case of Kirkland, we were able to perform that analysis to say, you're doubling the capacity in the zoning district, providing some other incentives. Here's what that might be worth in terms of affordable housing. But also, development feasibility is not good right now. And so even if you adopt this, it's unlikely you're going to see development currently, and then allow the city to have that conversation about what that means. So those are sort of this kind of two-pronged approach that we've been taking. We've built a pretty flexible tool so that it can be really modified and tailored to, say, a particular neighborhood in Bellevue or a neighborhood in Redmond, and understand the dynamics of the market at that time, but also have that higher level look at just generally the trade-off between requirements and incentives.
So just, I want to ask one follow-up question. I understand about the higher level trade-off. I think that's good. Is there an economic analysis piece that's built into the tool? Because I didn't hear an answer to that. Or is that something that cities have to do on their own to look at their own incentives, or it's done by you guys if we want to look at it?
What we've pretty much focused on is trying to come up with estimated feasibility for a prototypical development in a particular area. We're not going that step further to try to predict over 20 years, here's what you would see in terms of housing production. That hasn't been something we've done, but a city could certainly undertake that analysis.
And has that been tested with developers' input? Because they know what pencils.
We did go through some outreach and engagement with the development community this year to get their input on this tool. And so we got a lot of good feedback from that. I think what we were hoping and what I think we got to is a consensus about how to do the math. And then there's a lot of devil in the details about the inputs and assumptions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Robertson. I'm going to go to Mayor Robinson next, and then followed by Councilmember Lee.
Thank you. Hey, Lindsay, I just so appreciate the incredible partner that Arch has been over the years, especially since you've come on board, and the nimbleness that you have shown throughout the pandemic and as our housing needs have changed and our funding has changed. So I'm really happy with the work that you have done with our city and with all the cities that you partner with. And I'm very grateful that you're willing to kind of look outside the box and see other ways that we might create affordable housing for people. And I'm gratified for the fact that Bellevue is, supporting affordable housing throughout the region. It's not just in our own city. And we could not have done that without you coordinating all that. So just want to thank you very much and say I support this recommendation.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. Councilmember Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Arch has been a tremendous model of regional collaboration and partnership for the whole region. I don't know how big it is, county for sure, maybe even the whole state. That's a good model. It's worked for the last, over 30 years. And, but of course, things have changed. And the reason why it's so successful, I believe, is what Councilmember Robertson has mentioned. S has played the role of a trusted advisor and excellent implementer, how to make things happen. But the things have changed, situations changed. As a result, the roles may have changed. It's becoming a lot more complicated. It used to be, Bellevue is the one that leads the pack. Only 3-4 other cities are part of the coalition. But now, the needs are spread all over. So your role has changed. And so without without commenting on whether you have been doing a good job or individual have changed, we have players changed, everything's moved. There's some challenges, some discomfort that's come into this thing. Because recently, one example is the board has mentioned the role of Arch may have to be changed, and what your relationship may have to be, and what you specifically have to do. And I think this all probably have to happen. But as the city of Bellevue, as a council member who's been around for a while, I've witnessed and followed you with admiration and belief. Even though I do have some questions, but you did it very well, strictly for the benefit of the city primarily, but for the region, addressing all the questions very successfully. But now these problems have become so big and so regional focus that it's no longer just a simple solution. They say, well, we solved the problem and it's good. It's an ongoing work in progress we have to keep working on. So as a result, I'm confused, and some other people or other cities, I would imagine the community in Bellevue would have changed, would confused also. Just what role are you clearly Arch is taking on? Maybe it's a good thing for you to give us what do you call a chart showing how your role has changed, and so that we know what we have to accommodate. Because I think that's part of the importance of collaboration, part of the role of partnership is that we need to know better. We need to be more in touch. We need to be more in front. Because I think you mentioned that you collaborate with us, tell us you form your work plan for the board, but most of us, the cities, council members, we don't have that kind of opportunity to discuss with you, understand, and just what are the policy we have. What do we? You mentioned, Jennifer Robinson mentioned advocacy. There may be a time, maybe a role for being advocate, but what is it? How much of it? And I think the cities, represented by the council member, probably need to know what they are, or you need to have a say, opinion on it. Then we have to agree how much of it, what it is, and how much we can really work together on. Because it's not always the goal, the road time to me is we want to build more housing available. Not just we figure this is the way to do it, and as a turnout, we may not have more housing because maybe the method, maybe the end result may not be what we really can expect to have. So I think that some things needs to be more conversation, needs to be more discussed.
Thank you, Councilmember Lee. I would suggest that for some of those offline questions, maybe you could get together with staff.
More conversation, we need to have better, discussion.
Terrific.
So I think it's good for you to be aware of what some of us are thinking about.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Councilmember Lee. All right, Councilmember Stokes.
Yeah, thank you. First off, I appreciate the comments that our mayor had, and I agree with that. And my perception of it is that Arch is even doing better than it ever has done in terms of helping us get affordable housing, helping us get people in housing, and working together. This is not Bellevue's program, and we want to control it. We're part of the team, and we have other cities working with us. And we also are up in this 7 people aren't trying to run the program and decide which way we go and what the policy is, how do we implement the policy. Our job is to give the policy, to give the overall viewpoint of this and look at the budgets and all these things. But I think we've made great strides. This is I think the best work that's been done by Arch, at least in the 12 years I've seen it and knowing from before. And that the idea that you're actually going out there and working with others and working with the other cities and working with people that's involved in this who are on the ground, and we have staff. Don't forget the staff. Our staff does a great job with this. That's how the communication goes. If we end up with where the policymakers are also the implementation people, the 7 of us are going to be working pretty hard to do a lot of stuff that's really not necessary because we have staff for it. And we have guidelines for you, we have policy for you, and we have it set up. So I think you've really we're doing a great job, and we need to work better on that and not get bogged down in bureaucratic concerns. To me, I've been so excited about the way, particularly I think you've done a great job in working with our staff and other people involved in other cities. Arch has done a great job and has a great amount of respect from all parts of the community that's working and involved in this. So I'm very happy with what you put forward. I think it's very positive. We can look at anything that we want to. It's not a secret. It's all been out there into detail. So I'm very happy to move forward on this and get the 24 budget and work program going. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stokes. And Councilmember Zahn.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the information and the presentation as well. So I'll start off by saying I support the budget recommendation in here. I especially support the additional for outside legal counsel, because I think that's very forward-looking. And the art of the deal is going to only get more complicated, and so having more outside legal counsel, I think, is good. I'm glad to see that the Housing Stability Program actually has 15 million being requested, because when we first started, we weren't hearing from too many, and so if all $15 million is viable, we really need to look at whether we want to, we had talked about bonding against future revenues beyond the 10 million, so I'd like to make sure we take a look at that. Excited to see the 350 affordable housing units over 3 years. I think that's great. And then in terms of the discussion we've been having around what is the role of Arch, what I really like about how Arch is operating is that it is multi-city, multi-jurisdictional, so we can share knowledge with each other. And I see Arch as being the convener of the discussion. I'm really excited about the evaluation tools that you're coming up with. And it sounds like maybe part of it has been developed and the economic analysis could actually use more refinement of the tool. Because ultimately, our role as council members is to make sure that as we value incentives, that we're getting the benefits back to the city, so it's not a gift of public funds. And I think it's a really high fiduciary duty that we have. So having Arch being able to provide those tools, I think is really important. And then the discussion around the policy and the advocacy, I guess I'm trying to understand how you can be part of the East Side Housing Roundtable and not be an advocate. So I think that the fact that policy is one of the things that's in here means that part of policy development is being able to advocate, to be able to understand why policies make sense. And so I support that. And then lastly, the discussion around the tenant protections for renters. We know that affordable housing is at a crisis and for renters as well. My hope is that as we go forward, we're able to have those conversations holistically with other cities, because I'm concerned that if we create a patchwork of different rules for renters, it's very confusing, because we literally, right across the street from Bellevue is Newcastle and Redmond and Kirkland, and Issaquah. So I think that for me is more problematic than the fact that you self-deployed in that effort to get our attention at a time when, we were working on many other things and didn't necessarily have the bandwidth to take that on. But it is going to be an important discussion we need to have to make sure that it's one of our strategies to prevent homelessness, is to make sure that fewer people are evicted from their rentals. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Zahn. All right, so looks like we are all in agreement, I believe. So I think we're ready to certainly direct staff to prepare legislation approving the Arch 2024 Administrative Budget and Work Program. Councilmember Robertson, do you have a motion?
I do. I move to direct staff to prepare legislation for council consideration, approving the Arch 2024 Administrative Budget and Work Program consistent with and pursuant to the Arch interlocal agreement requirement.
Second.
Yes. Go, well, okay, go ahead before we go, it's been seconded.
Correct. Maybe a misimpression that I don't support this. I do. All we're saying is that the conversation, especially when regard to policy making and other things that's important, there has to be council discussion, understanding, right? And that's what we're here for.
Yep.
If we just do everything the staff does, then we don't need to be around. Why making a motion? Why do we even pass a proof? We do, but to do that diligently, representing the public, we need to have conversations. That's what we're pointing out.
Yep,
Okay?
I appreciate
That's
that.
it. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and thank you for clarifying your comments. Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Let me ask my colleagues, do we want to power through to the last study session? Is that okay? Okay, let's move forward with the last one. Interim City Manager.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor and council members. This last study session relates to amendments to the multifamily tax exemption code and specifically related to micro apartments. In June, the council, during the council study session related to the micro apartments land use code amendments, the questions came up around the size of the units and the area median income level for these very small dwelling units. Staff is returning tonight to answer those questions and also to provide council with a recommendation. And after the presentation, staff is seeking council direction to develop specific program language that would align with the recommendation to bring back to council. And joining at the table, we have Emil King, Planning Director, Lucy Zappone, Senior Affordable Housing Planner, both with the Community Development Department. And with that, I will hand it over to Emil King.
Thank you again for the introduction, Interim City Manager Carlson, and good evening again, Council. So tonight we're here to talk about updates to the multifamily tax exemption code, and this is stemming from the work that Council did back in June for the micro apartments and very small dwelling units. So this is a relatively surgical set of amendments, and we'll be brief with our presentation. So we are seeking direction tonight from Council, and it's to amend the definition of very small dwelling units that's in the city code. Currently, it's 300 square feet. We want to amend it up to 320 square feet. And we also want to change the affordability level for those very small dwelling units from 45% of the AMI to 50% of the AMI. So these are the two code amendments. They might seem like minor things to do, but they are important to essentially sync up the MFTE code with the land use code. The agenda tonight will be brief. We'll give a quick overview of the MFTE program and why this update is needed, and then Lucy will walk through the specific code amendments.
Excuse me. All right. The MFTU program was originally adopted in 2015, and it's a voluntary affordable housing incentive for new multifamily rental developments. The program provides a 12-year property tax exemption paid on the housing portion of qualifying projects in exchange for setting aside 20% of the units for income-eligible households at 80% AMI. In 2021, the MFTU code was updated to encourage participation. Key changes included expanding the areas where the program can be utilized and alternate pathways for providing family-sized units. There were no changes to the size threshold or AMI level for very small dwelling units, keeping the definition that was set in 2015. So currently, the MFT code for a very small dwelling unit is 300 square feet or less and must have an affordable rent at or below 45% AMI. For projects that don't provide family-sized units, 25% of the units would be rented at that level. And separate from the MFTE program, land use code updates were made to the micro apartment standards in June, with the goal of removing barriers to and encouraging micro apartment development. One of the key changes to this land use code was providing a definition for micro apartments, which set the maximum size threshold at 320 square feet. During the adoption of the micro apartments LUCA, there was direction by council to look at and analyze two potential changes to the MFTE code. Change one would increase the 300 square feet MFTE threshold for very small dwelling units to 320 square feet to true up with the new micro apartment size limit. The concern is that this could potentially give a developer proposing a micro apartment between 301 to 319 square feet the ability to receive a property tax exemption while charging market rate events. Aligning these square footage thresholds would close this loophole, and the developers that we talked with, we as the staff talked with, said that this change makes sense. And change number two is increase the AMI level. We looked at the AMI level to determine if this was the appropriate calibration to maximize both utilization of MFT code and affordable housing production. Based on our analysis and feedback from developers we spoke with, raising the AMI level would encourage the utilization of the MFTE code which would provide for more units to be under covenant for 12 years. And then, as a reminder, our direction for consideration this evening is to direct staff to amend the MFT code definition of very small dwelling units from 300 to 320 square feet and change the AMA level from 45% to 50%. And with that, we'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Thanks, Emil. Not sure everyone's going to want to speak to this, so I'll look for hands, and I see Mayor Robinson would like to weigh in on this topic, so I will go with her first. Mayor Robinson.
Thank you. I'm so excited about this. You know, it's always been my dream that individuals earning minimum wage could afford to live in Bellevue if we had an MFTE layered with a voucher. And I think this creates just that. I mean, this will enable anybody earning, I think it's about $24 an hour, to afford to live in it as is. And minimum wage, I think, is $17 an hour, so they might need some help there. But this is a great solution. I really appreciate my colleagues' support in advancing this so quickly and the staff's response to that. So I am all for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. Councilmember Stokes?
Agree with the mayor completely on this, and this is very exciting to do this, and also want to give kudos to Councilmember Robertson for particularly talking about the 20 square feet more is very important, and the change of the affordability level. So I think we've come to a really good resolution of this, and hopefully it will pay off in a lot more affordable housing. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Zahn?
I'm ready to go. Let's vote.
Great answer. Councilmember Robertson?
No, I really appreciate this coming back really quickly. I was very worried about the loophole of passing the micro unit code ahead of this. So I'm really pleased to see that it is getting trued up. I absolutely support it. And if no one else has comments, I'll make the motion.
Let me check with Councilmember Barksdale. I think we're good. All right. If you'd like to make the motion.
So certainly, I move to direct staff to develop, oh wait, when is this coming back for final action?
We haven't set a specific date, but it can come back on the consent calendar when we find a slot for it.
Oh, yeah, it'd be great, sooner the better. So I move to direct staff to develop specific program update language that aligns with staff recommendation for truing up the square footage threshold for VSDUs from 300 to 320 square feet to increase the current AMI level for VSDUs to 50% and to bring that legislation back with all due haste on the consent calendar.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes. All right, so that was our last agenda. Oh. Well, I apologize. Councilmember Lee, you did not have your hand up the last time I looked, but I apologize. I'll give you 2 minutes right now.
No, I didn't blame you for that. I said I just didn't have a chance to, so I'm doing it. I think this is a good example of when council talk about it, you know, and then we make improvement on it, and it's done for the good of the order and everything else. So well done, good job. I support it.
Okay, thank you so much. Again, that is our last item for this evening. Thank you for joining us. Great work. And they said it couldn't be done before 8 o'clock, but it has been. So have a great evening, one and all. Thank you.